Welcome, everybody, to this meeting of the Concord Municipal Light Board. As seems typical these days, we have a very full agenda covering a range of different topics. So let's get started. The first thing is minutes. John, what do you have in the way of minutes for us to approve?
Yes, I had distributed a copy of the minutes for our November 12th Light Board meeting this weekend. And if there are no proposed edits or comments on those minutes, I move that we approve them.
Do I hear a second? Brian, does anybody have any edits or changes to those meeting minutes? Okay, Chris, do you
Uh,
approve?
Yeah, despite the fact that it said I was late, I will approve.
Brian,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I approve as well. So that's our first agenda item. The second agenda item is Jason's report.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Warren. I wanted to mention a few things today. First, last week, it was the NEPA, New England Public Power Association's annual meeting. It was held in Worcester, and I attended, as did several other general managers, because it's not only their annual meeting where the budget's voted, but also the line worker graduation. And they always have a great speaker as well. So that went well. And I also just mentioned that we have two line workers starting the NEPA line worker school next year. We'll have Nick starting in year one and Eric starting in year two. These are two of our newer apprentice hires that started earlier this year. So that's very exciting to watch them go through the program. I wanted to mention that the town has awarded the Climate Action and Resilience Plan RFP to Weston and Sampson, and are going to be moving forward with a pretty significant reworking and revision of the Climate Action and Resilience Plan. CMLP was a partner the first time when that plan was drafted, or the last time, I should say. I don't know if it was the first one. And we'll be a partner this time. I want to thank Laura for her participation in the screening and selection panel. And we'll be in touch with Megan and the team working on that in the Climate Action Committee. We're working with Brad Hubbard Nelson of the Climate Action Committee and the Network Geothermal Subcommittee on a grant application for MAP or with MAPC on the network geothermal issue, trying to study the financial aspects of it and how it might work in a municipal light plant community. The deadline was Friday, but they've said that we can still submit this week and get priority consideration for that grant. So we're trying to finalize the documentation and get some letters prepared in support of that. We attended the Minuteman ARC's ribbon cutting for their electrification efforts. They have electrified a third of their vans that are used to transport people every day. And so Senator Barrett was there. Janicetti, some of the Energy New England team was there. And it was, people were very happy. The vendor who did this for them has said that they've never worked on a project that went so smoothly from a utility perspective, and they were really pleased with how everything turned out. And this is phase one for them. They're looking to continue on with these efforts. But it was a really exciting, to see this come to be, and then also just the amount of staff time that this took on the engineering side and the line crew, as well as the rebates and energy management team and Laura, as well as the building of the rates that the board voted just a month ago. So it was a team effort to get this done very quickly, and I really appreciate everybody's contribution toward that effort. I wanted to give a couple updates on the audit because last year, it was November when our audit was approved, which is still late for us this year. It's still not completed. I wanted to let everybody know the holdup has really been the difficulty we're having with cash reconciliation between the town's financial system. We believe we have a good understanding with our auditors on how they're going to allow us to basically recognize the town's cash balances for now, while CMLP undergoes kind of a more forensic audit between the two systems. Unfortunately, there is not a one-to-one transaction between the two systems because a journal entry on one side may represent dozens of journal entries on another side. And so we're going to be undertaking that in the next several weeks to a couple of months. But we'll be able to finalize the audit in January. The auditing firm that we use just got really busy, and but they feel like they're basically done, and they just need to write the report and finalize everything. And then we have hired a new auditing firm to start for our calendar year 25. And the pre-work for that is actually starting in early January, which is months earlier than we normally do. And I have to say, I was really impressed with the questions that this team is asking and the type of how deeply they're looking into things, especially potential conflicts of interest. They are the most utilized auditing firm of light plants in the state and have a lot of experience doing this for over 2 decades. So I'm really excited that they'll be able to bring that level of expertise to the light plant. And we'll hopefully be able to get it done a lot sooner than we've had in the last couple of years. I wanted to mention that we had a meeting with Eversource about bringing in a second feeder into Concord. Right now, we have one feeder that's coming from Maynard substation, and this would have a lot of resilience impacts and also help over time as we expect electrification and higher demand. Right now, we have 2 buses, 2 large transformers that feed, one large transformer that feeds each bus. We have the capacity to tie the buses together and power the entire town with one transformer, but over time, we might not be able to do that because our load is so high. So, this is early workings. This may take a very long time to come to fruition, but it's exciting that these conversations are happening, and now it's really about feasibility and space and how we would get basically to our substation or substations. I wanted to give a few time of day updates. Customer outreach is in full swing with some events planned. We've got events scheduled for the League of Women Voters in January, as well as the Concord Climate Action Network in January. We'll be reaching out to the CAC, the Climate Action Committee, and we've got something in the works for the Council on Aging in February or early March. We're working on scheduling the forum. We've confirmed the venue, and now we're getting some dates for the board to hold the Light Boards Forum. And then bill printing is underway. We're hoping that NISC, our vendor, can pivot now that they've been working on stormwater and solid waste recycling, that they can pivot over and start finalizing the bill print for time of day. The landing page is up as of yesterday. I don't want to publicize it too much because we're still doing some minor tweaks, but we got the code from our vendor Questline and are loading that in, and that'll be nice so that once some of these mailings and conversations are happening, there'll be a nice clear landing page. We've got one page, but there's going to be a lot of subpages that will allow people to dive in deeper, and that's what we're finalizing now, including really robust frequently asked questions. Laura has continued on with staff engagement and sort of a one-on-one or department by department engagement. We did have a long discussion about this at our all-staff meeting in November, but we are going to be following up with every department to make sure that every CMLP member understands how time of day works in the event that they're asked about it by a member of the public. I wanted to highlight something and share my screen very briefly on the NYPA credit. Laura had prepared a memo for November, and it just didn't get in the packet in time. But every year we update the NYPA credit basically to reflect the balance that we have in there. It fluctuates as we build up money. We give it back. As it is too low, we let it build up. So I'm going to share my screen and just let Laura highlight the recommendation. Our plan is to implement this in January, but we will be sending this memo out to board members later today and looking for feedback. If anybody has any concerns or questions, we can certainly hold off. But typically, we adjust this in January. It's not a rate, so it doesn't need to be voted. And there is a methodology that's been in use for probably over a decade on how this credit is calculated, but we just wanted to mention it today. So this is the memo, and it just outlines what the NYPA credit is. There's hydropower from Niagara Falls. This power is incredibly cheap, and we're required to give some of that back to our residential customers. And Laura, maybe you could, if you want me just to scroll down to the recommendation, I can, or if you want to say anything else about it.
If you want to just scroll down to the chart, it's probably easiest for people to see. That's a table.
Sorry.
So what this reflects is so because NIPA power is cheap, its benefit is relative to whatever the market is. Like, so in other words, if we pay $5 for NIPA power and the market price is $10, well, then the benefit customers are getting is $5. But if NIPA power costs $5 and the market price is $100, then the benefit that we owe back to the customers is $95. So its benefit is highly correlated to what the market value is, which you can see, has been fluctuating quite a bit. So if you go down to the table now, this just shows the beginning balance back to 2015 of what was in the NIPA account, the savings that accrued that year, the credit that was given to the customers, what it was in cents per kilowatt hour, and what the ending balance was. And you can see that ending balance has ranged from as high as almost $400,000 in 2018 to a negative $100,000 in 2023, where we had given too much credit to the customers and they actually owed us money back. So in 2024, it was a very reasonable $70,000. This year, we had estimated the credit should be 2.5 cents. That's what it's been on bills. But it appears that the credit is going to exceed what the credit is going to exceed what we've given to customers. So we'll be building the balance in the fund. And in particular, the very high prices we've seen in December this year are likely to result in a larger balance in that account. So I'm recommending, if you go down to the next page, Jason. Oh, yeah, that's the chart I was thinking of. Let's not go over that one. So right now it's 2.5 cents. I don't see where it says that, but it is 2.5 cents. And I'm recommending that we go to 3.9 cents per kilowatt hour. And if you go down to the next page, what that's going to mean is that rather than the $1.88 credit that customers get this year, the 3.9 cents would be a $2.93 per month credit per residential customer. And that's because you only get the credit on the first 75 kilowatt hours of usage. So that's the recommendation, to go from 2.5 to 3.9 cents. We'd like to do it effective with January bills to get that, to keep the balance from increasing too much in the account. Thank you.
All right, and then just the last thing I wanted to do is thank all the staff for their incredibly hard work during 2025. It's been a great year, and we've got a lot accomplished, and I'm really proud of the team that I'm a part of, and I thank them for their contributions to the light plant to the town of Concord. All I've got one.
Hey, thanks. And I'm sure all the other board members join me in thanking everyone on the team, and including yourself, Jason, for all your very good work. Any questions or comments any board members have related to the executive director's report? Chris.
Yep, the NIPA credit, we don't need to do anything with that. That's just the staff decides that, or how does that work?
I mean, historically, what we've done is send this memo to the light board to let them know how the calculation is, how we come to that calculation. And then the board kind of says, like, yeah, that sounds good to us. So,
okay, that sounds good to us. Or to me.
Yeah.
Good. Great. Cameron.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick question. So, Jason, thank you. Great update. You mentioned second feeder with Eversource. Are we also still talking to them about the ability to sell power back when we have excess?
Yes.
Okay. So, and is that part of the second feeder, or that's just a separate discussion?
Totally separate discussion.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Brian.
I was also going to ask about the feeder line. So I know Hingham is doing this, and they spent the last 3 years raising rates in anticipation of the expense. For them, it's something like 65 million. Do we even have a ballpark on, not even an estimate, but as we scope out this project, once we decide we're going to actually go forward with it, we should start raising rates like they did, because it's a good way to reduce shock to the rates.
Yeah, I mean, the way that this is often done is that you can make a request to the Department of Public Utilities to change the depreciation rate, and that has the impact of basically saving money away for these types of projects. And I know that Reading and Hingham have done that in recent years to sort of save up for big projects like this. I think one thing I'll say is that building a new substation, buying land, siting it, connecting it to everything is a huge cost. Expanding a substation is less of a cost. So I think it really depends on the land needed, the where they have access, So they're just sort of scoping things out and wanted to start the conversation. So once we get ideas about that, we can certainly bring it to the board and say, this is what the value it would bring, this is the cost we think it might, take, and then we can have those discussions, but still very preliminary.
Well, that asks a goal question. Is the goal just to manage our capacity, or is it to do resilience where we have a different land approach so that if a tree falls on the wires going to our substation, the whole town doesn't go out. We have an alternate
Right.
station.
Yeah, I mean it's underground that feeds it, but it's a fair point. There obviously can be a problem. There have been problems on a single feeder before, but yes, if the substation in Maynard had a serious issue, we would lose all power because there's only one way that power comes in, and this would obviously increase the resilience a lot. But with more resilience is more complexity as well, right? Having to balance how power is coming in and eventually going out. So there's definitely a lot there. But I think from a resilience perspective, it would be a huge win, and especially knowing that the current situation has a capacity that we're still nowhere near reaching, but that this would allow for even more, future growth and electrification.
Thank you.
John.
Yeah, just two comments. One, to kind of weigh into this question of if we were to undertake such an investment, how best to recover costs. I think we need to, that's an important issue for the board to deliberate on, recognizing that to the degree that we were to charge customers before that facility is in service, there's the potential for some customers to be paying for it who aren't going to ultimately benefit from it, if people leave. And I think there is an ability to, finance it. So I just think that that's something that we really want to consider kind of the full range of alternatives to. And then just was wondering if it would be appropriate to have a quick briefing in terms of the public education and marketing efforts for the time of day rollout. I realize we had that discussion last year, but I think as we move towards April, it might be worth in our January board meeting just a quick refresher for the board in terms of what's happening and what's occurring. I just feel like this is, as we've agreed, is a critical issue for the board, and it's really going to be a critical determinant in terms of the success of the rollout of the program.
Hey, John, that's a good point. I think we should commit to making that a major agenda topic next month, and especially because we're going to be doing the public forum. So we need to, on the board, understand what the whole education plan is and make sure we're all on board with it. Thank you for bringing that up. Well, let's go on to, we now have two agenda items related to broadband, but Dale will cover the first one first, which is just the broadband report.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Let me get this up here. So I've got this in one presentation.
Dale, can you make it full screen? I don't know if we can.
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought I was, yeah, there we go. Okay. So the main thing that the broadband team has been focusing on this last few months is this migration to this next generation technology for our services. So our current services are what's called GPON, Gigabit Passive Optical Network. This XGS PON is 10 gigabit, and it's symmetric. So we'll basically be able to offer more than tenfold increase in service. And we've been doing a lot of work to make that happen. So one of the first things we had to do was get access to more bandwidth from the internet. And so we've upgraded our internet service providers. We've upgraded one of them from 5 gig to 10 gig, but we've upgraded another from 10 to 100. That actually, that's a really good thing. We need to do that, but that kind of led to some of the problems that I think you guys heard about last month with the outage that was caused. So we now have the ability to receive 100 gig worth of traffic, but we haven't yet installed all of the new equipment that can handle the 100 gig of traffic. And so we had somebody outside our network that was pushing traffic at us really hard, and it caused problems. But you should have by now seen the after action report on that. We've upgraded the equipment and we've installed it and cabled it. As we're doing this migration, we are changing from one provider to another. And so we've have to change the internet addresses. And that has had some bumps along the way as we do it, because some of the new addresses, people are having challenges because the provider is still showing them on not the provider. Anyway, there have been some hiccups as we make that migration. But that's pretty much resolved at this point, and the software upgrades have been done to the equipment to bring them up to date. We've got the configuration done, and we've started doing testing where we actually put equipment on the new network, connected out to the internet, and we can see these services that we currently use working, and also the higher speed services that we're now able to offer. So what's next? So right now, every customer has their service set up in our current system. So we're going to replicate all of that setup for every customer in the new system. And then we've done basic testing of the primary configurations, but this month we're going to be testing each different setup. Not every customer, but we have setups for the town. We have setups for businesses that want special connectivity and things like that. So we're going to be looking at validating all of that before we go live. And then we're going to schedule the migration. So I wanted to show you this basically. So this is kind of an overview. This is an average of traffic for a day. So starting from 6 a.m. in the morning, going up to midnight, and then back down to 5 a.m. You can see that our traffic winds down from about midnight to 5. So we are going to be creating maintenance windows in the month of January where we're going to take the whole system down. It probably won't all go down, but we'll let customers know that they may experience outage during that time, and we'll be migrating customers from the old system to the new system during those 4 maintenance windows. And then we're going to continue to do staff training because the new equipment uses new software and people are coming up to speed on that. So all of that will happen this month. That will not involve any downtime. Part of the goal of this is not to have downtime between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which tends to be a very important time for people to have access to their internet and streaming services and all of that. So in January, we're going to start actually doing those migrations. In February and March, we'll be looking at what happened. We're not going to increase service speeds until April. So in March, we'll install new routers. And that will allow us to finally do the upgrade to higher speed services for customers. So I'm looking at in April being able to provide higher speed services. And our current thinking is that we wouldn't change any pricing on the residential side, but we would increase people's speeds for what they're paying today. And on the business side, we would be able to add additional tiers that would bring our bandwidth even higher than what businesses are able to get right now. So I know that's probably very technical and not super interesting, but that's kind of where we're at and where we're going with this migration.
So maybe we'll pause here and call that the end of the broadband update, Warren. And
Yeah, so let's see if there are any questions, comments. I have one, and that is what share of customers are going to need to get new routers?
So no customer will need to get a new router. When we do this April upgrade, customers who currently have 1 gig service, again, if we follow the plan that we're going to talk about in the next session, they would get 2 gig service. And they would need a new ONT that would support that higher speed. But everyone else would be able to use their existing equipment from us. If you could find that you have a Wi-Fi router of your own, and if your service went from 300 meg to 600 meg, you may find that your Wi-Fi service doesn't go up to 600. But if you've been okay with everything you're doing at 300, you probably may not want to spend the money to upgrade it. It's up to you.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board before we go to the next part of the broadband presentation? No, that was a very useful overview, and it was good to get into some of the technical details too. So thank you, Dale. So let's go to the next part.
Okay, so the next part there's kind of 2 pieces. One part is the whole Wi-Fi scenario. So currently, the Wi-Fi equipment that we give out to customers is about 10 years old. It's Wi-Fi 5 technology. The latest and current technology is Wi-Fi 7. And the equipment that we've been using, our equipment vendor is dropping. They're not going to continue to sell and support it. So we're showing here that there's a couple of different things we want to do. One is, so in our current scenario, wherever we put the router, the service is basically goes in a bubble around that Wi-Fi access point. We can install with the new equipment, we can install mesh systems where you have multiple nodes and you have a bubble around each node, which allows you to cover, like you can see in the scenario on the left, we're getting the first and second floor or basement, first and second floor, but we're not getting the third and the attic. And so as we're able to put multiple systems together, we can provide wider coverage. You got the same thing in a house that's maybe not so tall, but more spread out. We can put a larger unit in the center of the house and then put smaller on the sides and do a better job of providing coverage. What we provide today is only a single unit, right? So you only get the unit in the middle of the house, and you don't get it. It's not as powerful as these new units that we're looking at.
Dale, can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
Warren, I just want to let you know the purpose of this part of the presentation is just to update the board on our proposed sort of fee structure for these new devices, because the new devices cost more, and we're going to be offering equipment that we did not offer before. So we're trying to outline what new offerings that we'll have and then what the fee structure might look like so that we can get feedback from the board. And so Dale is walking through some of the changes and what the practical application of those changes are so that the board has a kind of an understanding of why we're even, discussing this in the first place. These are new services and offerings that we don't currently provide today. So sorry, go ahead, Dale.
Sure. So the other thing that we're doing is we're moving to a 2-box solution. So right now we have some places we do 1 box, some place we do 2. And what that means is if we do a 1-box solution, if there's a problem with the O&T, we have to replace the box. If we need to upgrade the Wi-Fi, we have to replace the box. If the customer decides that they want to change from our Wi-Fi to theirs, we have to change the box. So with the 2-box solution, we segment that and we can deal with the Wi-Fi separate. Like I was mentioning, our Wi-Fi technology is 10 years old. We would like a scenario where we're keeping our Wi-Fi current, right? Customers are coming to us and complaining that the services that we're offering, some of their new devices are saying that they're too old. And I can understand that. It's a 10-year-old technology. So by segmenting it, we can deal with the issues that our customers are facing individually and not have to put it together. And if we can offer a managed Wi-Fi service, then that means we will have fewer truck rolls. Customers will be able to call the 24/7 support line, and the support technicians will be able to connect up to their equipment and see what's going on. And that's very helpful when you have a clientele that's not technically savvy, right? If the folks know the technology, they may not want somebody else getting into it, and that's fine. But if they don't and they want the support and the help, the idea of people being able to get into it remotely 24/7 and fix things is really good. So in terms of the pricing, we're looking at a couple of different options. We want to offer a lease option for the equipment for people who want to choose that option. And we also want to offer a hardware support option for people who want to choose that option. So the lease option is basically saying, instead of paying for this equipment all up front, you can pay over time and you won't cost any extra. But the equipment you get has a 1-year warranty. So if you do a lease over 2 years and the equipment dies after 1 year, how do we get that replaced? Well, we'd have to do a new lease and you'd still owe on the old lease. If we do the hardware support option, then that might be on top of either an outright purchase or a lease. And then we would guarantee that if your equipment breaks at any time, we would replace it. And we would also keep it up to date, basically allowing people to upgrade to newer equipment every 4 years if they want to.
Hey, Dale, before you go on, If you could clarify one thing, are you looking to choose between these two options, or are you looking to offer both of these to customers?
I'm looking to offer both and let customers decide. I
Okay.
know I think it seems like a lot when I'm talking about it now, but I think there are important differences, and some customers may want one over the other.
Great, thank you.
Today, a lot of customers, when they see that our Wi-Fi won't cover their whole house, they buy their own equipment, right? So they're paying anywhere from $300 to $500 to put in a Wi-Fi mesh system. And that system may have anywhere from a 90-day to a 1-year warranty. And when it's done, if they have a problem with it, then they have to go out and buy new.
Yeah.
Right? So this is kind of an alternative to that. And they can get the equipment from us, and then we can offer a plan to if they don't want to be worried about it at all, they just want to call someone for support, they could pay a monthly fee and we will just take care of everything. So here we're looking at the kinds of devices that we want to offer. Basically a standard Wi-Fi gateway, which costs us just under $200, and we would provide the first one to a customer for free. That's similar to what we do today now. We have a single device, and anyone who wants Wi-Fi, we provide that device, and we don't charge them extra for it. I mean, you pay the $150 installation fee when you start, but that's it. And then we're going to have a higher powered device that somebody, if their house is a little bit bigger and they're seeing that this isn't covering it, they can pay a one-time fee of $120 and we'll give them the higher powered device. Now, if that covers their whole house, then they're great with that. If that's not enough, they can add these Wi-Fi mesh extender units, and we're saying $120 for each of those. So if you have a big house and you need 5 of those devices, then they would be 5 of these $120 mesh extenders. So that would be the one option if people are buying things outright. I mean, the last option we're including is some people really want to have outdoor Wi-Fi, and so we're adding a device for that. But that is strictly going to be paying the cost, which is $400 for that device. And that's hardened, so it can go outside your house, and it could do your whole backyard or whatever you're needing for outdoor coverage.
And you can see that least cost column on here. And again, that's something that the competition offers, their customers, and something that for people who just want some service, and they say, well, cover my whole house, and they don't want to go buy a mesh system. They don't understand how to install it. And they also say, well, I have a really big house or a long house, or my bedroom's really far away from this. This would just allow them to add, a smaller monthly charge and pay for that over time. And so I'll just stop there and I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we didn't offer this, they would have to buy their own equipment. So what we're proposing is they can still buy their own equipment if they want, or they can buy this equipment from us and we'll put it in and support it. We'll provide the software support forever as long as it's our equipment. It's just if the hardware breaks, they'd have to replace it. If they don't want to pay it all at once and they want to pay it over time, we basically take the price and divide it by 24 and allow them to pay it monthly over 2 years. And then we're looking at an additional charge of basically the replacement cost of the equipment over 4 years, so that if people want to, they could buy the equipment outright, and then they could pay the support cost per month. And then anytime the equipment breaks, anytime we get a next generation of equipment, they'd be eligible for upgrades to the newer stuff. So anyway, that's a lot of detail on the Wi-Fi, and I feel like we haven't even gotten to the service tiers yet, and I've consumed my time. So
Well, maybe why don't we pause here and just see if there's questions on this particular topic?
sure. Hi, Brian.
Right. So, as someone who has figured out how to do their mesh network and so forth, these problems I understand. Um, the lease cost will recover the cost of the units over 2 years, and they'll be eligible in 4 years to get a new unit.
Uh,
So
they'd have to be paying the monthly cost,
for
the
4 years.
monthly support cost to get a new device in 4 years.
Okay. So for 2 years you're paying the lease cost, and then for 4 years you're paying the support cost, and after 4 years you would pay the lease cost again, or
No,
would you
no,
get?
then you would get a free.
No. So basically, if you got the lease, the hardware is covered for a year. So you wouldn't need the support until you're a year in. But then once you're a year in, you might say, well, if this breaks, or maybe you complete the lease and your equipment's fine, but you want a plan so that if it breaks in the future, you don't have to worry about it. Then you could pay this monthly support cost and we'll just take care of it.
Yeah.
If you don't have to do this, and then if your equipment breaks, then you have to do either a one-time purchase or a new lease to get replacement equipment.
So I just you've thought through every scenario. You've got a way of handling the desire of a customer to pay what they're actually getting, which is great. But I just think about Comcast, and Comcast would just say, this is the fee for the unit, and it would be indefinite, and it would be some kind of structure where they would make money on leasing you the unit, and you wouldn't be able to buy the unit from them, and it would be simple for the customer to understand. It probably wouldn't be financially accommodating, or a good, we would offer a better value. But this is
But this is
complicated.
complex. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
I
And
think.
that's, I'm not saying this is final, right? We
Yeah.
could say, we're going to get rid of the one time, or we're going to get rid of the lease, and you have to buy it and choose whether you're doing the support or not. I mean, we could definitely pull options out.
I would rather
But I wanted to present all the options that we might have and get feedback on it and see what people think.
I think
I
that
agree, communicating this is going to be challenging because it is a lot of stuff.
yeah, I think the 2 monthly payments is confusing. So my preference would be you buy the equipment, and then you pay the support on a monthly basis, and then 4 years you're able to get an upgrade, or it's capital upfront. But I think having two monthly charges, one kicks in a year late, one happens for 2 years and goes away. It's too much for the average customer to do. But the idea of providing Wi-Fi service, I fully support, because I know how difficult it was for me to do that, and I think of some of my elderly neighbors trying to figure it out, and it would overwhelm them.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Chris.
Yeah, so just with the caveat, this is like way beyond my area of expertise. And the thing that's nice about electricity is we kind of give it to them at the meter and they do whatever they want inside the building with it. This seems very different, and I understand the reasons why we're expanding our scope, because the competition's doing that, and so we need to meet that competition and the market need. It does feel overly complex, and I think what we want to be offering is a simpler solution. So you don't want to have to deal with Comcast, you could just have somebody local help you with this. And I worry that our pricing is not including maybe the full impact of the customer service needs that are going to occur, because I think you're going to get a lot of people struggling and calling every time anything at all happens in their house. And so I just think we want to be careful with the pricing and have a way to recoup that extra customer service.
Yeah, that's happening today, unfortunately, right? Is that people are buying their own equipment and then calling us and saying that our service is not working for them and that our service is actually fine, but it's their equipment. And we have the burden to kind of prove that it's working. So we have to investigate all of these. One of the benefits of the managed Wi-Fi option is that we can actually see if the problem is the wireless or if it's their equipment or if so. These systems definitely reduce truck rolls and will save us, money. If we weren't already investigating those, I would agree it's going to be an added cost. But right now, sometimes we go, very far down a rabbit hole for somebody's, individualized situation and their equipment, and have to prove to them that no, look, in fact, our equipment is working fine. It's your equipment that's not working.
Okay, I can see that.
Thanks. Thanks for those good comments, Chris and Brian. And I certainly support the idea of simplifying it. I think we should come up with what's the best option that we think most people will like, and that's what we offer. Even explaining one thing is going to be hard enough. Having to explain two different ones is going to be, a bridge too far. Any other board comments so far? Well, let's go on, Dale.
Okay.
Well,
So
Dale, why don't we skip this, since if we're going to be making changes, let's just go right on to this slide's perfect.
Okay, so we want to talk about what we're looking at for changes to the service plan. So on the residential side, we're looking to basically double the bandwidth with no change in our cost, our charge to the customer. And you can see that we've currently got 64 customers who are at 1 gig, and they will need to get new equipment so that we can move them to 2 gig. So that's,
we talked about.
I don't imagine there's a lot of concern about that because we're not changing prices. I mean, the one thing I will say is that we're trying to compete with Comcast, and you can see on the left here where Comcast is at. So their prices are significantly less than what we have. But you'll also notice that we provide the same speed upstream as downstream, and they don't. So if you buy 2 gig service from them, the best you're going to get is about 290 megabits upstream, not 2 gig. Where if you get 2 gig from us, you get 2 gig downstream and 2 gig upstream. So it ends up working out that our cost is higher for downstream, but much lower for upstream. So you can see here the 2 gig service that we would offer would basically cost 7 cents a megabit. And in the downstream direction, they're looking at between 3 and 5 cents. And in the upstream, 25 cents to $1.70. So
and those
I've had a number of customers complain about our speeds and say, I can get that speed from Comcast for a lot less, but it's not symmetric when they do that. So
yeah, but does the average resident use up speeds? Businesses do, but I think it's they're downloading TV and other things. They're not really utilizing that value we're providing.
How many people are at Zoom calls from home?
Right. I mean, right, doing backups, doing video streaming, but I'll just mention that these promotional deals are advertised heavily, but they're not eligible for all customers. You can't be an existing customer to get any of these deals. You have to be a new customer. So they're using this to entice people to leave alternatives, not for their existing customers. And they're also typically come toward the end of the year when they're trying to hit certain numbers. So these fluctuate wildly, and these upstream numbers are not eligible in all locations. So even though Dale says, upstream as high as this or that. Some places are limited to 5 meg up, which is just not enough to even have a basic Zoom call. So, yeah, why don't you move on to the commercial business because
Yeah.
we're over time.
Okay, so on the commercial, we're also increasing speeds, but we're increasing costs. And we're bringing these costs more in line with what Comcast is charging. And it's roughly a 1/3 increase in cost. And we're taking another stance on. So today we allow businesses to choose residential service. And we've had some problems with that where a business really wants business service, but they don't want to pay the installation cost. So they'll get residential service where they pay a fixed fee to install, and then later they'll change it to business service. Comcast doesn't allow you to buy residential service if you're in a business district. And so we're going to impose the same restriction. If you're a business, you got to buy business service if you want our service. But while the prices are comparable to Comcast, the service, the price per megabit is a lot better. It's somewhat comparable in the downstream, but as you get higher and higher speeds, we get better. But in the upstream, there's no comparison. So if you've got a business that is really using bandwidth in both directions, we would be the clear winner.
Yeah, Dale, thank you. We, are going to move on to other topics. So
Yes,
let's get any board comments here. And
that was my last slide.
right, I had one thing. Dale, do you worry on the residential side with increasing speeds, but without increasing prices? Some customers will, in effect, downgrade their service because they could get the same speed they have now at a lower price, and therefore you're going to have less revenue.
I think that's a possibility. I don't think it's a huge concern. People are used to paying what they're paying, and we're not changing it. I think it's more likely to happen on the business side where we're looking at raising prices. So somebody could on the business side, if they were getting 150 and they're paying $90 a month for that. Well, when we upgrade them, they're going to be paying $120 a month and getting $275. Well, they could go down to this and be paying $100 a month for $175. So I think it could happen there. I doubt it will happen on the residential side as much.
Warren, we've done a lot of analysis on this, and we've also looked at what other providers do. Over time, it's natural that the amount of speed you give for the same price increases. And if you create new tiers, not only does it create complexity, but we actually see more movement if you just create new tiers and allow people to move naturally. And then also just the customer experience of having you get this speed for this price, but your neighbor is getting a much faster speed for a lower price because they took some action and you didn't. So I think that when looking at all of that, we think this will have the least impact and the least movement as opposed to some of the other ideas that we've had talked about over the last few months.
Okay, great. Other board comments, Brian?
On the Comcast pricing for business as well as residents, I mean, you put down the cost, it's like half our prices. Is this a
Well, that is,
promotion?
That is the current pricing that I was able to see from Comcast, which I can only see if I choose to be a new customer,
Okay.
right? If
And
I'm an
but
existing
so
customer,
I'm
then
gonna,
they want me to log in as
I
that
see that.
customer, which I can't
So
do.
I just want to ask a quick question.
Sure.
So I just want to know if this is an introductory rate or if
Yes,
this is a
well,
2-year rate.
it's a promotional rate, but all of like Verizon is doing these promotional rates that are 5 years. Okay, so
Okay.
they guarantee the rate for 5 years, but like this promotional rate that I'm comparing us to is only good until November 21st. So after the 21st, that goes away. And I don't know what it will be, whether it will revert to their normal rate or whether they'll have a new promotion. Um,
Okay. So we just
but
don't
I mean,
have good. So
if I were
I shouldn't look at the numbers for Comcast and take them
as
uh,
gospel forever and
yeah, they're not a good estimate.
I
They're
can tell you what I pay.
okay.
It's about $110 a month for just internet and nothing else.
Yeah, and
yeah,
if you look at this pricing, it looks like everything is like $70 or less for, the world. And
Correct.
so
Not
yeah.
indicative.
See, if you were a new customer, you could get these rates, but because you're already a customer, you're not eligible and they won't
yeah.
let you have these rates.
Yeah,
I just
I
want
would.
to make sure that we're in a real world scenario competitive with Comcast. And because looking at this chart, it does not look like we are. But if you know,
It is, like I said, it's challenging, partly because Comcast does a lot to obfuscate their pricing,
yeah,
right? I mean, in the past, it was very difficult to get numbers on their upstream bandwidth, and the FCC imposed some labeling requirements. So now we can see it. But um, I tried to download all of their promotions and rates, and I got a spreadsheet of 10,000 different tiers that have all different rate structures.
wow.
And
Okay,
when I
you've
looked
answered my
at the
question
ones
then.
we have here, none of them were in those 10,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
Okay.
really hard to compare. But I think the biggest thing that I hear from customers is they don't like Comcast. They want some alternative because either, well, they give a good price up front, the price suddenly changes, or they add fees, they change the terms. I mean, I haven't included taxes in here. We don't charge any extra taxes, but Comcast does. There are a whole bunch of
Okay.
things that we appeal to customers on other than just price.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the board? Thank you, Dale. I don't think we need a vote on this at the moment. It's great to get this background and see where you're going with this, and we'll talk about it again.
Thank you.
So
Thank
thanks.
you.
So we now need to go into the dreaded rate hearing, which I always dread mostly getting the motion right to go into a rate hearing. Brian, do you want to suggest to someone what motion they should make?
Oh, it's usually
I mean,
written in the agenda.
Yeah,
oh,
you can just
okay.
move to suspend the regular meeting and enter into a rate hearing for the purposes of discussing the private area lighting rate.
Yeah. So I move that we open the rate hearing to discuss the primary lighting rate,
Private area lighting, but
private area lighting rate.
And is there a second? John. John, do you approve?
Second, yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I do as well. Okay, thanks. We're in a rate hearing. So,
great. Laura, do you want to share? Or do you want me to share? I've got it up if you
Sure,
want.
yeah, you could go ahead and share. So there's one rate that slipped through the cracks when we were trying to address them all earlier this fall, and that would be the not much used private area lighting. These rates are not changing very much. When UFS did their cost of service study, they determined that the current rates we were charging were either higher than or lower than what they would have assessed for the different types, the 175 watt metal halide, the 250, the 400, and the 400 watt LED. So they wanted to move them into their cost of service direction. So for example, we were charging $22.73 for the 175 watt metal halide, and they determined that its cost was more like $17.50. So they want to move it from $22.73 slowly to $17.50. So they proposed a $1 per lamp per month discount. So instead of being $22.73, it would now be $21.73. And presumably in the next year, it would go down a little bit further. So it would gradually reach its cost of service level. On the other hand, we were only charging, let's see which one went up. We were only charging $19.15 for the 400 watt metal halide. At the Concord Academy, they determined the cost was $27.68. So that one they're proposing goes up $1 to $20.15. So each one of these is a $1 difference from the current rate, either higher or lower, depending on whether the current tariff was above or below its cost of service. So these are the changes that it would be. It would be $21.73, $24.57, $20.15, and $34. And that compares with $22.73, $25.57, $19.15, and $35. So $1 different. So we're proposing that we accept UFS's recommended prices and adopt this rate.
Thank you. John.
Laura, who are the type of customers that have this rate? I mean, you mentioned Concord Academy. I mean, is that a typical customer?
Yeah, so we have the U.S. Postal Service, some churches, some businesses, and some schools.
Often parking lots, is that fair to say? Like, or public areas that need to be lit outside of regular streetlights.
Yeah, Joe would probably know that best.
And hey, Laura, why is a 400 watt metal halide less expensive than a 250 or a 175?
This is recovering the cost of the unit, right?
Yeah, it shouldn't be in real life. So in other words, Warren, the rate that UFS would have charged for the 400 watt metal halide would have been $27.68, whereas they would have only charged $20.97 for the 250 watt. But for reasons unknown, the 400 watt metal halide, which I believe only one customer has, that the rate in effect last year was $19.15. So it was a really, really low rate relative to what it should be. And so because they're only using the dollar change increment, only raising it $1 doesn't get it very close to its cost of service. So you're right, it should be more expensive. I mean, we could just make an abrupt change to the 400 watt metal halide. I mean, its cost of service is $27.68.
And the LED 400 watt, what's its cost?
$26.50.
So we've gone $1 down on the LED
Correct.
and $1 up on the metal halide, but both are very out of whack.
Correct.
Yeah, so I wonder, if we do this $1 increments, we'll be long retired before we ever get to the cost of service. I could see not making an abrupt change, but should we at least do $2 or $3 a year so that this is a process that only takes 2 or 3 years to finish?
I would agree with Warren.
Well,
Okay.
and thinking about this, I mean, these are not customers that we really need to protect, right? I mean, what's going to be the consequences of moving to the full cost of service for these rates for these customers, right? These are relatively small dollars, I would expect. So I would be comfortable with moving to the full cost of service
Yeah, I'm I'm
at one time.
I'm more concerned about the number of years that the board has to think about this to get to the suggested cost of service because we won't do it. We'll forget about this thing and find it again in 10 years.
Laura, do you have a chart that shows what the cost of service is that?
I have it in front of me in a hard copy, but I don't have it electronically at my fingertips. I apologize. But more, Jason, if you could write down these, can you write down on the
Yep.
PDF next to this? So I'm going to give you the cost of service number, but I'm going to round it. Like the actual cost of service for the 175 watt was 1751. Let's just call it 1750. So write
Seven.
down 1750 for the first one.
Yep. Okay. I'm just going to edit this here. Okay. So the first one is 1750.
Yep. The 250 watt metal halide should be $21. The 400 watt metal halide should be, well, how do I round this one up? Let's call it 27. No, you better make it 2770. If the actual number is 2768, but it needs to be higher than the 400 watt LED. So 2770 and the 400 watt LED is 2650.
So basically, most customers are going to be doing better where um, reducing our revenue. Um, where by doing this gradual approach, we're really primarily protecting the light plant's revenue rather than rate shock for the customers. It doesn't seem like it's a great argument for not going to the actual cost of service.
Could we, you said there was one customer that had the metal halide. Is this a parking lot of lamps for them, or is this one lamp in all of Concord that's going to see a $7 increase?
Joe, can you respond to that? It's Concord Academy. Joe Repoff.
Oh, maybe he needs to be unmuted. Let me just see. Sorry, Joe. I can't see the participants right now. Can one of the other 17 co-hosts unmute? Oh, there we go.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's just like Laura said, there's just the one at Concord Academy. I mean, we could certainly look at changing this out to an LED, then that kind of ends this altogether, which would be another option.
That would be ideal.
That's something we could do.
But do they have just one lamp, Joe, or do they have like a parking lot of 20 of these 400 watt metal halides?
To my recollection, it's one. There's definitely not a parking lot full of them, but
Okay.
It's most likely one. If there's a second one, I mean, again, it wouldn't even be that bad to swap out.
So, Chris,
I'm curious, the 400 watt LED, is that 400 watt equivalent, or is that actually drawing 400 watts?
No, that's an equivalent.
So that should be using a lot less energy than these metal halides.
Yes, I think it's around 60 watts consumption.
So, Warren, I'd like to propose that we do the proposed rates of the suggested cost of service study and reach out to that customer that has the 400 watt metal halide, because they're going to see a $7 impact on their bill for their entire school. I don't think they'll even notice if we don't reach out, but I think we should, just to offer to replace it with an LED and then set the rate at cost of service.
yeah, we don't have to vote on this yet. Is there a second to Brian's motion?
Second.
But before we vote, I want to ask, um, we're reducing the light
Revenue.
plant's revenue. Is this a significant enough reduction in revenue that we should be worried about
No,
revenue projections for the coming year?
No,
no, no, no, do not worry about that.
It is a small,
Okay, any
Well,
discussion or comments on?
you want to take public comment, Warren, since we're right here?
Sure, that's a good point. Any public comments on this? Not seeing any. Um,
So
let's take,
just to
we're,
be clear, Brian, your motion was the proposed rate column that we've added, right?
correct.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
okay, Brian,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you. Are we now able to exit the rate hearing?
Yep.
Um,
I move that we exit the rate hearing. I need a second.
Second.
second,
So
is there a
John,
second?
John gave a second.
Second.
John, okay, John,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
I'm a yes as well, and Brian.
I'm a yes.
Okay, thank you. We're out of the rate hearing, and now we're going back to the topic we started at last meeting, which was the forecast for the coming year. Let me turn it back to you, Jason.
Great. Thank you, Warren. So I just wanted to give the board and the public an update on where we are in the forecast. Last month, we gave a presentation of a draft forecast. In later November, we made some edits to that and circulated it to the board. I didn't receive any comments or concerns from that. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and kind of walk through the differences between what has changed from the last presentation to today's forecast. And then hopefully the board can make a vote to recommend this forecast to the town manager for adoption.
Also, if Jason, if you could also highlight big changes in account values.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go through some changes that we've made in response to board feedback, as well as any other changes that resulted from us continuing our financial analysis. Yeah. All right. So, and just for a reference, I have both documents. I have the last month's document here with a watermark at the bottom of the date, and then the current document here, so that if there's a question about, what something looked like before, I can quickly flip back. But I realized I was confusing myself, so I added the watermark to make it very clear that that was last month's. The very first one was a very simple one, which was that this first page is a summary, and all of these figures come from the detailed spreadsheets that are within the document. So we did make sure that everything tied to the actual spreadsheets in the written summary. In the last version, starting around page 34, we hadn't yet completed the power supply or purchase power section with the detail, which includes sort of analysis on what we expect the load to be and how much power we're purchasing and what our portfolio looks like. So all of that was added as well. And again, you can find this complete presentation in the meeting packet that was posted a few days ago. Page 10 has the overtime data. And there was some question about some of the overtime, especially for the line crew that had a significant jump. I did look into that, and there were a couple issues and corrections that were made. One of it is that it is expected to go up in part because we have 2 more line workers than we had the previous year, and then also because we are under union negotiations, and we expect that this is the amount that we'll need to pay people what will be contractually negotiated. And then there was an error. So there is, as you'll see, gross pay and then overtime, and they're kind of separated. Gross pay is supposed to be including the standby pay, and the overtime is strictly overtime. And there were 2 people whose standby pay was incorrectly put in the overtime bucket, and so corrected that. And so this 596 is the correct number for the line crew. It just moved a bunch. I'm not sure why. Okay, so the next one on page 20 scroll stopped working. This is a big one and warrants some conversation. So John had made the suggestion that the effective return should be calculated on a net plant value instead of gross plant value. And after reviewing Chapter 64, Section 58, it says specifically that the schedule prices shall be fixed to yield not more than 8% per annum on the cost of the plant, as it may be determined from time to time by order of the department after the payment of all operating expenses, interest on the outstanding debt, the requirements of the serial debt or sinking fund, et cetera. And so those last two definitely mention interest and the debt or sinking fund, which we call depreciation. And so we did make that change. It results in a very significantly different calculation. I made it for all the previous years as well to be consistent. And so basically we're taking the gross plant value and we're subtracting the accumulated depreciation over time. And keep in mind the accumulated depreciation changes. Of course, it increases gradually each year if we don't buy anything new, but as we put new things into service, then it would decrease as we take, existing materials and any items with plant value out of service. And so that's what we've done here. So you'll see that these percentages go higher. You'll also see that if we target, say, a 3 or 4% return, it's going to be a much smaller dollar value of what that return would be. And so I think that this is probably a good question and a good issue to take up in the new year as we look to, I'd say having a more regular conversation about our financials and where we are. My preference would be to have maybe a quarterly update since we prepare quarterly financials for the ISO New England anyway, that we could present those to the board and have discussions about them. But so we're still under the 8% for this year and all the other years, but it's a significantly higher percentage than we've seen in the past because we're calculating this differently. And I looked to see if I could find a net plant value used instead of a gross plant value, and I couldn't. So we've conceivably been using gross plant value for a very long time in the calculation of these returns. But I just wanted to highlight this and the repercussions of that. And maybe I'll pause here since this is a larger topic and just see, Warren, if you have any questions or comments on.
Yeah. Any board members have comments about this change or the other ones that Jason's mentioned up till now?
Just to clarify for the audience that, if we have a return, it goes towards the next year and lowers rates.
Right.
So
Yeah.
people
We don't make money or,
Right.
exactly. We're not a
Because
for-profit organization. And so I think what this would affect, right, is that in future years, when we calculate our revenue requirement and we look at our rate of return that we're expecting, it will result in, lower rates in the future, right? Because these numbers wouldn't be so high. They're high because we voted our rates before we finished the forecast because we wanted to keep time of day rates. We had to vote those early and we needed to keep revenue collection sort of the same. But conceivably, if nothing else changed next year, we would be lowering that target for the effective return and trying to hit that 3.5%, 4% that the board is suggesting. And so that would lower a little bit, the collection.
Don't forget that out of the net income, we do have to pay for the cost of inflation, the difference between the depreciated value of the asset and what it actually costs us to replace it. And in the current environment where inflation has been going up rapidly for the last 4 or 5 years, this is a much more important consideration than it has been historically.
Thank you, Laura. John.
Oh, you're muted, John. John, you're muted.
Yes, sorry. To the degree we did have a target of a 3 or 4% return, but that was based on, the return on gross plant.
Right.
I think we need to really reflect the fact that, effectively it was a higher return. And to me, I think what the return does is, in addition, it kind of represents a margin that protects the light plant and customers from all the uncertainty, right? The fact that ISO New England wholesale market prices could be considerably higher than forecast. And if that were to happen, then essentially we'd be in a deficit position, would have to be charging customers next year for what we consumed this year. So I think that, if we're going to reflect on what's the appropriate return, we need to, evaluate it in terms of what that return has been in the past and what has served the light plant well. Just a comment.
Good point. I mean, I would also, to go further in terms of thinking about the uncertainties for this coming year, we do have estimates of how much revenue we will be getting when we switch to time of day rates, but there is a certain uncertainty in there as to what actual consumers' practices will be. So it's not bad for this year to have a little cushion to account for a range of different uncertainties.
Agreed. All right, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Anything else on this point before Jason moves on? No, Jason.
All right, so I'll just highlight, there's been no change, but there was a comment just about, showing that the estimate for 2026 for energy management with the rebates that we offer, and just a question about how we can, highlight some of these programs, and that was noted, and we will work on, doing what we can to make sure that we're increasing awareness for heat pump rebates and all the other rebates that we offer. On page 88, there was a question about the capital requests for the vehicles, which we had at $1.12 million. I just want to confirm that this number is correct. We're replacing 2 bucket trucks and 1 forklift for that. The bucket trucks are about 20, 25 years old. And so that is planned, and we will then have replaced kind of the fleet of bucket trucks, and we don't anticipate needing anything big until about 2029 or 2030 when we would replace another bucket truck. The $500,000 in tools, shop, and garage equipment included a replacement for the vehicle lift system, and then some other updates for structural fixtures in that area. Apologies, I'm going back, but page 26, we had some questions or comments on the electricity sales. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of changes, and I've highlighted them in this purple color here, just as a note. So these numbers change, and I want to explain how these are calculated. So basically, the Renewable Energy Fund is an account that gets filled with the percentage of a bill that people pay that's allocated toward renewable energy certificates or credits. And so what's happening is we're collecting revenue based on somebody's bill, and then we're saying, okay, well, of that, this amount goes to that fund. And so when a year is completed, those accounts are properly allocated, but initially the revenue is kind of showing up in the other portions of this statement where you'll see up here electricity sales, right? So residential service pays a bunch of money for their bills, and then it gets allocated in this renewable energy fund. Money is taken out and put in this rec fund so that it can be used exclusively for purchasing recs. When we presented the first forecast, all of that accounting hadn't happened yet, so these numbers did change. I can show you what they were on the last one on page 26. So for example, under Renewable Energy Fund, we had 3.6, 3.3, and the forecast of 1.9 million for the Renewable Energy Fund. You'll see that the forecast is about the same, but these two numbers did go down. And again, this has to do with that accounting and how we were improperly still allocating some of those funds up in the rate revenue areas. So we've corrected that. So that's been a change that was made. Also on this page, the provision for rate refund, and Laura, feel free to chime in if I incorrectly state something, but so we track these monthly, and because we're always either overcharging or undercharging for power. So we're saying, okay, how much do we owe back to customers, or how much do they owe us? And that's because even if we buy power at a particular rate, we always have some power that we need to buy or some power we need to sell back. And from the time that we say we want to buy power until the time we get the power, there's differentials. So, we're always constantly buying and selling power, trying to get the right amount and then getting billed after the fact. And so we have to make these minor adjustments for that, and we track it. And so the forecasted in the amount in the previous draft was only about $100,000. And that was removed because ideally we don't want to forecast anything in here. That means we're assuming we're going to be overcharging or undercharging. We should assume that we're going to get it right. And the reason there was a number in there at all is just because it was calculated to be an average of the previous years. So we did zero out that item, and I just wanted to explain why that disappeared. Laura, did I miss anything on that one, or is that good?
Just if you go back for a sec, I'll just dumb it down a little bit further. So when that number is positive, essentially the customers owe us, we're going to spend more for power than we're going to collect. And so that money is basically going to come from the balance sheet and be injected into the income statement to make us whole. Because remember, we don't make or lose money on power. And likewise, in a year when it's negative, we charged too much for power. So we have to inject 1.1 million, for example, in 2024 back into the provision for rate refund balance sheet account. So it turns out as a negative in the income statement. So just trying to explain the dynamics of how that works.
That's great. Thank you. The pilot here on page 6, it was, I believe, a 410,000, and it was just doing an average. I'm just showing you the previous one. It was this number. It was an average of the last 5 years, but this number is calculated. It's a percentage of our sales, and it's a formula that can be predicted. I can't tell you the exact amount because, again, the audited financials are what we use to calculate it, but we know what it's about, and it was too low, so we did make a change to that. Let's see. On debt service, I'm just going to scroll down because this is a lot further. On page 86. I just wanted to clarify some of the changes that were here that just hadn't been factored in time. So we originally had been thinking we were going to be borrowing for smart grid meters. That never happened. And part of the reason was initially we got the borrowing authorization from town meeting. And then there was a strategic decision made at the time that they were just going to fund the meters from depreciation. And that was the plan for quite a while. And so the initial procurements were just being paid for out of normal light plant revenue instead of borrowing. And then as we looked at some of the plant work we had to do this year and over the next couple of years, we realized it was a lot. And we said, well, rather than say borrow for a parking lot or a roof, let's fund those things out of depreciation and instead borrow for what we had borrowing authorization for. So we went to seek borrowing authorization for that, and it turned out that because we hadn't been tracking it appropriately with the intention to borrow, we couldn't really borrow for the full amount, the full 2 point whatever million. And so we said, well, let's just borrow for the remainder. And at that time, it was only somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. But still, it would represent money that we could spend on other things that we wouldn't need to seek further borrowing authorization for. And by the time we did that, due to a change in leadership and then the time to borrow and other issues with the finance team and the townhouse, we weren't making the milestones, and we have to pay these bills, and so we've just been paying for that. So we're not planning to borrow for that. And because it happened over time, it wasn't like a one-time cost that all of a sudden we hit $2 million. I think it's not going to have a measurable impact on anything. But the other two items, we do have some numbers filled in for, and these are the middle school solar and battery project, which we anticipate hitting in 2026, and then the main station battery hitting a year after that. And so the first payment is going to be due a year after those projects start. And if it's less, it's because it's a mid-year process. So if sometime in the middle of 2026 we need to borrow that, then we would make our first payment a year later in 2027. So I just wanted to clarify that if these numbers are different, it's just because of those three projects and what those values are and what the changes were. And I think that is my last note on the changes and the differences between. So maybe I'll pause or stop there and then just see if there's any other questions that the board has. And Warren, is it easier to stop sharing so you can see people, or do you want me to leave it up in case people have?
We'll leave it up because
Okay.
people will probably want to refer back to something.
Okay.
Any questions or comments from the board? Brian?
So we're on debt service, but the middle school solar project, hopefully we can move that forward in a different manner. But based on what we saw in the first round, do we need to do we have enough borrowing authority for that project?
That's a great question. I think that so there's $7.5 million there. I think that because we can break that into separate buckets, I think we have enough. And what I mean by that is that if you'll remember, the energy storage $10.1 million authorization we got was for energy storage in Concord. It was not limited to a particular location. So we could use the 7.5 million for solar alone, and if we needed a battery, we could use the 10.1 borrowing authorization for the battery or a makeup difference. So I think we're okay for that, even if we proceed as originally designed with canopy, rooftop, and a battery.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Every year we go through this and it's overwhelming. Just the accounting changes and methods, the things that happen, it's a lot to track. But I do like the change on the net profit margin and plant value. I think that's a good change and is better reflective of what we're doing. And I do like that because we did have that year where we came really close to just breaking even. And seeing 6 and 7% is higher than we target. But with the revenue neutral time of day and other things going on, I think it's a good thing to have.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Chris?
Yeah, so this is my first time going through this process as a member of the Light Board, and there's just an incredible amount of detail, and I really appreciate the presentation and the thoroughness of it all, and feel good about what I'm seeing here. So nice work by Jason and everybody at the Light Plan on this. I think this obviously takes a lot of time and effort, and it's really important we get it right, and I think we're on a good track.
And it's great transparency in government.
Yeah. Well, with those comments, does somebody want to make a motion to approve the forecast?
I'll move to approve the forecast as presented.
Thank you. And is there a second, Brian?
I'll
Okay, John,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So we have an approved forecast. Do we have anything else, Jason or Laura, you want to cover or board members, before we go to public comments?
Nothing for me.
Hearing none. Colin Reed has her hand up for a comment.
Oh, hold on, Carlin. There you go.
Okay, I think I'm there. Good morning, Carlin Reed, 83 Woodside, member of the Finance Committee. I had a question about your operating forecast. The pilot payment in lieu of taxes, which I think was reflected as $475,000. Is that the same thing as the FY27 enterprise total for the light plant that was presented at yesterday's select board meeting? The video is now posted, and the slide that I'm referring to is at 22 minutes and 44 seconds. That says it's about 477,000. It's not a lot. I just want to make sure that the two charts mean the same thing.
Yeah, they don't. Thank you, Carlin, for that question. I was at the select board meeting and I also noted the chart. So what the chart was presenting was estimated indirect costs that would be charged to enterprises. So indirect costs are charges that CMLP incurs for getting support from town departments that are funded by the general fund. So for example, IT services, HR services, town manager's office services, finance and finance administration, treasurer, things like that. So for example, the treasurer receives all of our payments from all of our customers and posts them. and handles, bank accounts and transfers and things like that. So for those services, we pay money. The pilot is separate from that, Carlin. So we pay a pilot as one tranche of money, and then we pay indirect costs, which are another tranche of money. And so they're totally separate, and you would add the two together, plus pension allocations and OPEB allocations. When you add all those up, those are the costs that the light plan is sending over to the town for the services that we receive. But the pilot is sort of a discretionary, just more general pool of money. And I'll mention, interestingly, I've learned a lot about pilots as other communities grapple with them. And apparently, by law, you're typically supposed to figure out the pilot at the end of a year, kind of like we're doing, but for that year, because it's only supposed to be allocated from money left over after rates are charged. So we're kind of doing our pilot backwards, but I think the amount wouldn't be different. It's just when we're doing it. We're doing it now for next year. Other places do it now for this previous year. But anyway, but that's a great question, and I hope that answered it.
Quick follow-up. I appreciate that. The reason why I ask is because there's a dramatic change between the fiscal year 26 appropriation and fiscal year 27. You basically get the benefit of about $185,000, and that was a huge jump. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was a pilot, but it must be something else. I think I'll talk to you offline about this. Thank you much.
So, Jason, if you could clarify, is just coincidence that the pilot and the enterprise numbers are so close to each other?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Pamela Dredd. Jason has to unmute you.
Yep. 1 second. There we go. Did that work, Pamela? Is there a button that says unmute for you, Pamela? There you go.
Sorry. Thank you. Is it possible? Let me turn off the other device. No. Sorry. Is it possible to find out, will it be possible online? I know that we won't in the paper bill, but to find out details of time of day usage per customer so that you would know what you're actually using, when, and what the costs are?
Yeah, absolutely. Your bill will
I have
contain.
another question after this, so.
Okay,
This
sure.
is
Yeah,
more
your
of a
bill will
question.
contain that information. So when you get your bill, it will show you all the electricity usage by time of day for each month and a trend over time as well.
Oh dear, I'm sorry, I missed. Can you say that again?
Sure.
I need
Your bill will contain that information, Pamela. It will show you on that current bill, it will show you how much you used in each time period. And then there will be a graph that will show you over time how your usage in each period changes.
But will it be in more smaller would you be able to tell what you're doing during the day all through, not in the specific increments we've set up? So
Yeah.
that you
Okay.
and also is there a plan for developing a VPP as people get more smart devices that the town can control, like they do the thermal storage people, so that for instance, for peak shaving purposes and for power purchase reductions, so that the town as a whole can draw from our collective batteries to help balance, so that we end up balance our purchases and our production of electricity to save money for everybody.
Yes. So Laura, why don't you talk about connected homes and time of day rates and how they may incentivize that behavior?
Yeah, so with regard to the first question, we don't have a customer service person on the phone, but I believe you would be able to look at your hourly usage on Smart Hub. I'm not 100% sure about that, but because I think she's asking, not only do I want to see I use 400 off peak and 500 on peak, she
Right,
wants to look
right.
at the specific patterns. So we can follow up on that, Ms. Dritt, and just confirm that we'll be able to see that on Smart Hub, or maybe
It would be really good. I don't think we want simplification. We want transparency. And it doesn't, you don't have to give out the information to everybody, but if it is possible to find in great detail per customer, since we have it somewhere anyway, we have to have it.
Yeah, so I'll follow up on that and we'll get you an answer. And with regard to the question about the VPP, so we are really developing that concept with our Connected Homes program. Folks who have eligible devices that are connected to the internet that are voluntarily allowing CMLP to control them. We are providing them currently with a monetary credit for doing that, and we do control them. We currently control the electric vehicles every single day to avoid the daily peaks between 4 and 8 p.m. And we also control the other devices to manage monthly peaks. But we will switch to a daily management program before the time of day rates take effect in April. So yes, that is currently available for those who voluntarily want to join.
And can we make it financially incentivize people to do that so that we can end up, people will start putting in solar arrays and battery systems because the town will pay them enough to do that, and we would end up having excess energy that we could like export.
So currently, as I said, there's a monthly credit that customers receive that is variable dependent on the device. Nest thermostats generate a $5 per month credit, whereas batteries generate a $30 per month credit, and other devices have different amounts. So there's that financial incentive that is currently in place. However, when time of day starts, the financial incentive is going to change from a monthly credit into a realized bill savings, because CMLP will keep your devices from operating during the expensive hours, which should lower your bill.
That sounds wonderful. It
So,
also,
Pamela, I'm gonna want to leave it there because we need to adjourn. Thank you. Does a board member have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, John,
Yes.
Chris,
yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for all your good input, and thanks to the staff for some excellent presentations today. So, see you, and since we won't be back together, best wishes for the holidays and the start of the new year. Bye now.